Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
Money is not paper, it is not plastic, it is not digital. Money is behavioral electricity, a signal that flows toward precision and repels chaos. It's not earned, it's attracted. And what it's attracted to is structure. You think money comes from hustle? That's a fraction. Real money comes to those who carry the circuitry for it, who've upgraded their system to handle voltage. Because that's what money is. And the unprepared don't just lose it, they get burned by it. That's why lottery winners go broke. That's why sudden wealth destroys families. Not because money corrupts, but because they never developed the infrastructure to conduct it. They received voltage while still living in mental poverty. And voltage without grounding will always destroy its source. People worship money or resent it, but few understand it. They think it buys freedom. It doesn't. It reveals freedom. It exposes how much internal order you've built. When it lands in your life, it doesn't change your character, it magnifies it. Money doesn't make you greedy, it gives greed a microphone. It doesn't make you disciplined, it rewards those who already are. So if your life is chaotic, money becomes gasoline. If your life is ordered, money becomes leverage. The difference isn't moral, it's structural. You don't get rich by chasing wealth. You get rich by becoming the kind of person money trusts. And money, like energy, only flows toward clarity. You want more money? Audit your leaks. Where does your attention go when you're tired? What do you spend on when you're anxious? How do you respond to silence? By investing or by distracting? That's the true economy, not income, but impulse. Money is not just numbers, it's narrative. It's the story you tell with your habits, and most are broadcasting scarcity while praying for abundance. They invest nothing in self, waste everything on distraction, then ask why nothing multiplies. But money doesn't respond to language, it responds to alignment. The alignment between how you treat your hours, your energy, your word, and what you say you want. That's the cost of wealth, internal symmetry. You've been told money is a reward. It's not, it's a reflection, a mirror that measures your tolerance for responsibility. Every dollar is not income, it's weight. It demands direction, stewardship, allocation. And most people want the shine, but not the structure. They want the mansion, but they can't organize a single drawer. They want millions, but they flinch at a calendar. They fantasize about abundance, but walk like confusion. And energy never flows where confusion leads. So money walks past them every day, silently, looking for the disciplined, the precise, the prepared, and it lands in their hands, not because they begged, but because they were ready. Money is mathematical trust. That's all a transaction is, someone trusting that the value you hold is worth converting to liquid power. And the way you earn that trust? By becoming inevitable, by removing doubt, by designing yourself into someone so useful, so precise, so well-positioned that money has no choice but to orbit you. You don't need to beg the universe. You need to become a gravity well. And gravity is not built with affirmations. It's built with alignment. When your skills, your focus, your value, and your time all face the same direction, wealth starts to fall in line. Not because the world owes you, but because energy always obeys order. Let's get something clear. Money never made a man powerful. It just extended the reach of the power he already had. If your mind is cluttered, your money becomes a curse. If your mind is clear, it becomes a force multiplier. That's why you see rich men fall. They scale their income faster than their integrity. Money amplified what was broken. But when you've done the internal excavation, when your identity is forged, when your actions are clean, when your time is guarded, money does not corrupt. It collaborates, it joins your cause, and if your cause is worthy, it starts moving on your behalf, quietly, compounding, and soon your bank account becomes an echo of who you are, not who you pretend to be. There's a frequency to abundance, and most people never hear it because they're tuned to noise. They consume endlessly, they multitask as identity. They fear silence. But money flows in silence. It moves toward those who've trained stillness. Because in stillness, you become strategic. In stillness, you stop reacting and start architecting. Money doesn't respond to effort. It responds to efficiency. And efficiency is born in silence. In the quiet hours when no one sees you, refining your offers, recalibrating your vision, eliminating waste. That's the work no one applauds. That's the preparation that wealth respects, not because it's glamorous, but because it's rare. Most people fear losing money, but the real loss is never earning your capacity. They protect pennies while their gifts rot. They hoard coupons while their mind stays unmonetized. Why? Because they fear rejection more than stagnation. But the truth is this: money flows to motion, to risk, to visibility. If you're hiding, you're not poor. You're muted. To turn down in a world that rewards amplification. And no, not noise, not hype. Signal. Clear, sharp signal. You want to earn more? Raise your resolution. Be seen with clarity. Say fewer things with more precision. And let the market know exactly what it's buying when it buys you. The game of wealth is not played in dollars. It's played in decisions. Every day, you either invest or regress. Every action is either compounding or costing. There is no neutral. That's why money feels like energy, because it's never static. It flows, shifts, transfers, and mirrors your momentum. And when you start making decisions that build over time, money responds like a shadow. Quiet, faithful, exponential. But if your decisions are reactive, if they soothe today while sabotaging tomorrow, money evaporates, not because you were cursed, but because you were sloppy. And money has no loyalty to sloppiness. It flows where precision lives. It serves those who serve structure. Money is not the goal. It is the receipt, the residue of value, well executed. It's the proof that you moved with clarity, the echo of alignment, the applause for usefulness. And if you want to see more of it, stop chasing, start tuning, start moving like someone who expects wealth, not begs for it. Start behaving like someone who has the infrastructure to carry it without folding. Because money is energy, and energy respects order. Train your mind like a vault. Guard your time like an asset. Treat your attention like equity. And soon the world will pay to be part of your system. You'll hold the outcome in your hands, but only because you earned it with who you became. You wake up each morning thinking time is free, but it's already been priced, valued, scanned. While you sleep, systems are assigning numbers to your attention. Your feed is tailored, your habits are predicted, your preferences are monetized before you even realize you have them. Time doesn't feel like currency because it doesn't flash like cash, but in reality, It's the only resource you'll never get refunded. You can file for bankruptcy and get another chance with money, but not with time. Once spent, it's sealed, and the market knows this. That's why every app, every ad, every alert fights for the thing you've been tricked into thinking is worthless: your focus. But your focus is the first currency. Spend it poorly and you will forever be trying to buy your way back into purpose. The economy doesn't care about your effort. It cares where your focus flows. Because wherever it flows, value follows. If your focus is scattered, your value will be too. The man who can hold attention longer than others can outpace men with more talent, more skill, even more experience. That's the law of mental gravity. It pulls resources to the stable. And you only become stable when your focus stops bouncing between distraction. Most people don't fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they rented their focus to the cheapest bidder, to notifications, to novelty, to emotional bait. But if you can learn to hold your focus like a blade, silent, sharp, aimed, then the world starts shifting. Not because you shouted, but because you refused to look away. Attention is the new oil, but unlike oil, it doesn't sit underground. It sits behind your forehead, dripping daily into whatever you decide matters. And every minute it drips, it's being logged. By algorithms, by trends, by competitors. So, while you casually scroll, someone else is investing their focus into mastery. While you react, they build. While you escape, they refine. The results show months later, but the gap began in attention. That's how focus compounds. Not just in productivity, but in perception. People begin to see you differently. You're not just someone who does the work, you're someone who isn't available to the noise. And that absence becomes presence. Your silence becomes signal. Because in a world obsessed with being everywhere, the one who is rarely seen but always felt wins. The first poverty is not financial, it's cognitive. It begins the moment you believe your time has no cost, that you can waste a few hours here and there without consequence. But hours are ecosystems. Inside every hour is 100 decisions. Every one of those decisions shapes your trajectory. Miss one and it reverberates. A skipped moment of clarity becomes a day of confusion. A delayed habit becomes a detour, and yet people treat hours like pennies, tossed casually, forgotten quickly. But the high performer? He treats each minute like a stock, watched, weighted, allocated, because he knows time isn't just passing, it's being priced. And those who don't account for it are being priced too. Most people try to buy back their time with money. Hire this, outsource that. But if your focus is fractured, no amount of delegation saves you. You cannot scale what you haven't held steady. You can't automate a mind you've never stabilized. That's why you see burnout. That's why money feels like chaos in their hands. They try to buy leverage without first buying focus. But money doesn't fix focus, it just expands what's already there. And if what's there is confusion, you've just paid for more of it. But if your focus is clean, refined, purposeful, money amplifies that, and your systems multiply instead of collapse. That's the reward of mastering the first currency before chasing the second. The most expensive thing in your life is what you gave your attention to in the dark. Not the deal you missed, not the job you lost, but the hours poured into thought loops, grudges, mindless consumption. Because all of those demanded the same currency, focus. And what you paid in focus, you paid in opportunity. That's the real debt. That's what robs empires before they're even built. It's not sabotage, it's subtle theft, done in silence, disguised as comfort. You look up months later, wondering why momentum evaporated. But momentum was murdered slowly. Every time you stared into the void of distraction, the vision decayed. And the cost compounded, unpaid, and eventually unbearable. You want to dominate an industry? Start by dominating a single hour. Because if you can't own 60 minutes, you'll never hold six figures. And domination is not about force, it's about fidelity. Can you lock in? Can you say no to 1,000 things to say yes to one? Most can't. They dilute every hour with fragments of desire. But power is built through concentrated vision, through the kind of attention that doesn't flinch, doesn't drift, doesn't negotiate. That's what turns time into equity. That's what transforms focus into leverage. And when you stack enough hours like that, they start working for you. While others sleep, your past focus compounds. That's when your results go exponential. Not because you did more, but because you focused better. Focus is also character. It's the measure of how often you choose what you said you wanted over what tempts you now. Every moment you stay locked in, you reaffirm your identity, not just to yourself, but to the world. You become dependable, predictable, dangerous, because people know what you'll do when no one's watching. And when they trust that, they start putting weight on your name. That's when opportunities stop being hunted, they start showing up. Because the market rewards focus like royalty, not because it's rare, but because it's transformative. It shapes not just your output, but your posture. And that posture changes your price. Time is not about speed, it's about alignment. A man who moves fast in the wrong direction burns fuel and calls it progress. But a man who holds focus without shaking, he becomes unstoppable. Because he doesn't need to guess anymore. Every move is informed, every decision is weighted, and every outcome becomes predictable. That's how momentum is built, through stacked. So the next time you think time is cheap, ask yourself this: what am I paying with my attention? And what am I getting in return? Because if the answer is nothing, you're not spending time, you're being spent. You thought money was the currency, but money only follows attention. Focus is the original transaction, and when you spend it well, on mastery, on precision, on execution, money doesn't need to be chased, it arrives. It gravitates. Because wealth is just energy following design, and design starts with attention given deliberately. So guard it, refine it, spend it like capital, and you'll find that everything you want doesn't start in your wallet, it starts in your calendar. That's the energy of money. That's the law of the first currency. Wealth never walks into a room by accident. It scans. It looks for infrastructure. It studies the terrain before it takes a seat. And if the ground is cluttered, if your time, your energy, your systems are fractured, it passes, quietly, without emotion. Because money does not reward effort, it rewards alignment. Energy deposited consistently produces equity. That's the rule. Money shows up where attention was disciplined, where routines were built like scaffolding, where chaos was exiled, not entertained. If your life is scattered, your income is not broken, it's echoing you. That's the mirror no one wants to look into. But until you create a place for money to land, it will never stay. Not because you didn't earn it, but because there's nowhere stable for it to live. People want money to behave like a rescue mission. They want it to come in, clean up the disorder, and reward the mess. But money is not sentimental, it is mathematical. It follows systems. If your inputs are erratic, your outputs will always be unpredictable. That's not misfortune, that's structure responding honestly. You may work long hours, you may burn yourself out, but if your energy is fragmented across distractions, your results will fragment too. And money, like water, never stays in broken containers. It spills, it vanishes. That's why the disciplined often out-earn the talented, because they build containers before collecting flow. They don't chase abundance, they prepare for it. And preparation is proof of belief, not in money, but in themselves. Every dollar you earn is a receipt for past focus. It's proof that at some point you stopped scattering your power and chose precision. And when that precision was sustained, when energy was deposited with rhythm, the world had no choice but to respond. That's the unromantic truth of wealth. It does not chase passion, it chases patterns. Repeating patterns of execution, of service, of value delivered without flinching. That's the difference between a windfall and an income stream. A windfall is accidental, a stream is engineered. And engineering requires order, not just in schedule, but in identity, in thought, in habit, because income cannot outpace the structure of the person receiving it. Look at nature. Trees don't bear fruit year-round, but during the harvest, every fruit is a product of order. Seasons, cycles, patterns. Nature respects rhythm. So does money. You want financial fruit? Create seasons of uninterrupted planting. Stop switching crops every week. Stop abandoning fields every time the wind shifts. Choose a path. Design a plan, then deposit energy daily without applause. That's the planting phase. It's thankless, it's invisible, but it is what determines your harvest. Money is never late, but it does not arrive where energy was dropped inconsistently. It moves toward those who respect order. And if you can build that order, wealth starts becoming predictable. Not because you're lucky, but because you've earned sequence. The reason most people don't grow their income is simple. They want it to rise faster than their discipline. But growth without order is rot. It overwhelms. It chokes. That's why businesses collapse. That's why promotions destroy lives. It's not the money, it's the misalignment. They build elevation on a foundation of dust. But the elite? They build depth before height. They invest in inner scaffolding, calendars, systems, priorities, not for the aesthetic, but for the capacity. Because when income arrives, it brings weight. And if you haven't trained your structure to handle weight, success becomes suffocating. Order is the load-bearing wall. Remove it, and the house collapses. The moment cash starts knocking, energy, when undirected, becomes addiction. That's what most people don't see. They aren't lazy, they're scattered. They don't lack effort. They leak it into apps, into noise, into people who drain more than they return. And then they wonder why money won't stay. But money is smarter than emotion. It watches your patterns. If it sees disorder, it assumes you're unready. And readiness is not declared, it is demonstrated in your habits, in your routines, in how you hold yourself at 5 a.m. when no one is watching. That's what wealth reads. Not your words, your architecture. If the architecture is sound, the world responds. Not immediately, but inevitably. Order is not rigidity, it's rhythm. It's knowing where your energy belongs before the day begins. It's writing your script before the world throws you a distraction. People think freedom is doing what they want, but real freedom comes from building so much order, you no longer waste energy deciding, you just execute. And that execution compounds, not just in results, but in identity. You stop being someone who tries, you become someone who delivers. And delivery is the magnet for wealth. Money moves toward reliability. It does not trust the sporadic. It flows to the predictable performers. Because in a noisy market, consistency is currency. When you're ready for wealth, it starts testing you before it pays you. It sends pressure, it sends waiting, it sends delays, not to punish you, but to audit your structure. Can you stay consistent when nothing is happening? Can you show up on the days the world is silent? Can you keep depositing energy even when the return is invisible? That's the filter. That's how money separates the fantasizers from the architect, because the architect builds anyway, with or without applause, with or without proof. They keep depositing because they know money may not reward the earliest deposit, but it never forgets. Every ounce of ordered energy gets logged, and eventually it gets paid. Order is the soil, consistency is the seed, focus is the sunlight, and money is the harvest.